Hi, it's Mark from Top Local. We're here with Bernie Pawlik, Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver, Vancouver's best auto service experience. How you doing, Bernie?
I'm doing very well this morning.
So we're trying to get our second one in here, but we're going to talk about Range Rovers, which we've done a few things on. This one is one of the supercharged ones, and there was a coolant hose replacement needed. What was happening with this sport ute?
Well, the vehicle came to us. It developed a sudden coolant leak, leaking a lot of coolant out of the engine. We did our usual pressure test. This one was pretty complicated to figure out where the leak was coming from because it was somewhere on the engine, but there's a lot of covers and pieces buried. This is also a supercharged engine, so right in the middle of the engine there's the supercharger, which basically blows air into the engine, gives it all that extra horsepower, but it adds a level of complexity. So it turns out that the coolant hoses that were leaking are located underneath the supercharger. We could barely see them, but we could see enough to know that that's where the leak was coming from.
So under the supercharger doesn't sound like the best place to put coolant hoses.
It's not a good location at all. I mean, it's they're rubber hoses in an area where there's an incredible amount of heat being trapped. And although they might be good quality hoses, the vehicle's 10 years old. Things go wrong. So it's not, from an engineering perspective, extremely smart. I'll just share some photos here. Let's get these up. There we go. This is the engine with the supercharger removed, and this is the you can see. So the blue arrow points to the supercharger. Now that has actually been lifted up and removed because that normally sits down where the red arrow is pointing, and the red arrow is actually where the hoses are located. However, we've actually removed the hoses in this picture, but they sit sandwiched. This is the valley area of a V. It's a V8 engine. It's the valley area of the engine. The hoses sit on top of the valley. Supercharger sits over top of that, and there's an awful lot of heat being generated. Also, you'll notice there's a yellow arrow there. It just points to another hose nipple, and if you look sort of at the front of that picture, you'll see that there's actually 4 of those nipples coming off. There's coolant hoses on these items, and what those are the intercoolers. So as air is being blown into the engine, it heats up, and it's cooled actually by engine coolant, which is warm, but it's obviously cooler than the temperature of the air. And the intercooler cools the charged air down, so it densifies the air and it gives the engine more power. So it's a performance enhancement, but again, there's another number of coolant hoses, so it adds a lot of complexity to the engine. And while we're looking at pictures, this is the hose we replaced. We'll talk more about the hose after, but you can see there's a lot of bits and pieces. The little yellow piece on the left, that just holds a clamp, but that's one end at the front of the hose, and then the other end, just to the right of that, is the other front piece. That was the part that was actually leaking at this particular time. So this hose is available only from the dealer. It's a rather, pricey piece, but you got to do what you got to do.
So what kind of cost are you talking about?
Well, the labor's quite a few hours to remove the supercharger and get the hose off. The hose itself is over $500. I think the labor is well over that as well. So, I mean, it's, taxes and everything in, I think the bill will be somewhere in the $1,500 range, which is a lot of money for a couple of hoses.
No kidding. So it sounds like it's obviously very labor intensive, but isn't that true when you get into these very high-end, high-performance vehicles with pretty complex systems? The cost of maintenance and repair gets a lot more expensive because they're so complex.
It does, and I mean, this is a thing you got to walk into with your eyes wide open when you buy one of these vehicles. Is that you're getting you pay a lot of money for a Range Rover new. I mean, I think the starting price on a supercharged Range Rover is $120,000, and some of the HSE models go up to $100,000 more than that. So I mean, they were talking like brand new, but even in 06, this vehicle is probably $80,000 or $90,000. Now you can buy one for $20,000 and you get a really, really nice, luxurious sport utility vehicle, but you're going to be paying a lot of money for maintenance and repairs. As long as you know that, not a bad thing, because you're actually saving a lot of money over buying the brand new one, and you get well, it's a bit used, but it's a nice product. But yeah, that speaks to the complexity of these vehicles. They all have air suspension, which we've talked about. Things go wrong with that. I mean, it's a supercharger. Eventually, when that part fails, and it may never fail, but usually everything will at some point. You know, that's a few $1,000s. So there's a lot of stuff on these vehicles that that can cost you money.
So overall, how would you rate these vehicles? I've had my British cars and my fun with those. They're unique. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
How would you rate the Range Rovers?
You know, I'd say they're actually pretty good vehicles. The thing with my opinion on English cars is that they've, ever since Ford took over Jaguar and Land Rover, they really made the cars a whole lot more reliable. So when you get into the early 2000s, it's really when these vehicles started to become reliable. It's kind of funny to say that for a Ford, because I find we often criticize Fords for their reliability, but I mean they did improve the product enormously. So you know, they're not bad vehicles. I would, you know, just, you know, when you're buying a Jaguar or Land Rover, you're buying a luxurious vehicle, so there's more to go wrong. But they're not like the old English car where you had to be at your mechanic shop every week having something tinkered and tuned and something's going to break. They're not like that anymore. They're much more reliable.
So if you're looking for service on your Range Rover, the guys to see in Vancouver are Pawlik Automotive. You can reach them to book 604-327-7112, or check out their website, pawlikautomotive.com. We have quite a few other videos about Range Rovers on there and lots of other luxury vehicles. Thanks, Bernie.
Thanks, Mark.